Welcome to the first episode of Tarang. Today we will be interviewing Miss Vividha Kaul, digital marketing lead at Shell.
I think, Suyash, what goes into being a digital marketing leader at Shell or any other company, the first and foremost thing that you need to keep in mind is that you should have good domain knowledge. So you should know what digital marketing is about. You should be familiar with the different platforms. This is an ever-evolving field. There are new things happening on a daily basis. Companies like Google and Facebook, they are forever changing their algorithms. So you have to be really, really agile, and you have to be up to date and up to speed with what is happening in the digital world. Yeah. Different platforms here, they work differently. Different platforms use different metrics. So any company that you work for, you have to act as a digital evangelist. You have to kind of, show the value of digital to the different stakeholders. Therefore, well versed with it. So digital is not just about funny videos that we see on Facebook, but it's almost a science, and there is so much data behind each every post, each and every ad that we see on Facebook or Google or so many other platforms. Therefore, it is really, really important that we understand these platforms well, and we have the knowledge, and we are familiar with the knowledge and the science behind all of it. So that's the first key thing I would say, that you should be really, really good at knowing how digital marketing works. The second and an even more important thing is business knowledge. So as a digital marketer, you can kind of sometimes tend to get isolated or cut off from the business. You can be a bit siloed from the business. So it's really, really important that you understand how the business works and how you can show value to the business through digital marketing. Every business, every marketing person, every salesperson, everyone has certain KRAs, right? They're defined that this is what you're expected to do in this quarter, in these 6 months, in this year. So as a digital marketer, you have to understand how digital marketing can benefit all these stakeholders. How can I get more leads? How can I get more revenue? How can I use digital marketing to help the company improve the margins? So these are some of the things that you need to keep in mind to be a good digital marketing leader, because ultimately you have to drive greater adoption. Unless and until you are working in an out and out digital company where this is not so much a challenge, in a lot of other companies your key task will be to get leaders to adopt digital marketing and digital tools and technologies. And this is the only way you can do it, if you know how things work and if you can show the value that these things can bring to the business. I think one campaign that has been the highlight of my career thus far, it was KFC's Water Box, what as in WATT. So this is something that we had done for the launch of a product called the 5-in-1 meal box. And the brief from the team was very clear that we wanted to create like a pre-launch buzz, which is important because a good pre-launch buzz means that you get a good opening sales mix, which means that people are already walking into the store asking for a particular product. And a good, say, 6 to 7% sales mix on opening means that the product will be a good hit, and your that particular quarter will kind of be taken care of from a sales point of view. So that was the ask, and this was created based on a very strong consumer insight. So whenever you're working in digital marketing or just simple marketing or any other field, it's very, very important for us to look at things from a consumer's perspective. Quite often, when we work in companies, we tend to be guilty of doing things from our perspective, that this is what we think should get done. But it's really important to be very, very customer-centric and look at things from the customer, the consumer's lens. So we looked at all the young consumers, 18 to 24, college-going students and first jobbers, our target audience who were frequenting our stores. And a perennial problem that they seem to face, they were always running out of charge on their mobile phones. And they were always asking us, do you have a charging cord? Do you have this? And I really need to plug in my phone. So this was a persistent issue. So we said, okay, why don't we create a meal box which comes with a built-in power bank? And thus was born the idea of water box. In order to kind of promote it on social media, we ran a simple contest. You just had to tag a friend of yours who's forever running out of charge. And, we created a simple video as part of this contest. Um, we knew that it was good, and it was based on a very strong consumer insight, and it would connect with people, but we were not really prepared for the kind of response it got. So I remember posting it in the afternoon around 2:33 p.m., and by evening time.com had picked it up, and then it just went sort of ballistic from there. All these global platforms, websites picking it up, and I think it earned us some $130 million of earned media. And the kind of money that we spent on it was barely like in single digit lakhs, like 8, 9 lakhs or something, very, very, cheap as it were. And the highlight actually a few days later, a few weeks later, in fact, I came to know that it had become so popular and it had become so, viral, as people like to say, that in the US, Jimmy Kimmel had actually featured it on his show. But I could not access that clip for a very long time. And then somebody used a VPN to, kind of just sort of create that clip and share with us. And I still remember, it gives me goosebumps. There was so much excitement in office when we saw that clip that, okay, this is something that we had created from a very business point of view. And, we had not spent much on it. And it connected so well that even globally audiences loved it. And there was so much buzz that was generated around it. I think the learning was also that if you do something which is based on a very strong consumer insight, it does connect with. So I don't know if you remember, but December 2012 was a really, really dark time for people in India, and especially for people living in Delhi. This is when the Nirbhaya rape case had happened. And then Delhi had kind of almost had an awakening. There were all these, people who had gone to India Gate, and all these morchas were happening. So it was a really disturbing time for many people, that safety for women had become such a huge issue, and such a brutal crime had been carried out. And it was something that really shook the city. So against this backdrop, around 2013 is when we were planning a refresh or like a repositioning of the product of the HT main newspaper. And there was just so much bad news coming in from everywhere, of women's safety not being in place, of open drains and people falling into it, and murders happening, street lights being stolen. So it was just a whole lot of negative news. And we said that, as a person who gets up in the morning and maybe reads the paper before going to college or before going to work, do I really want to be overloaded with so much negative news? Is this what I want to read first thing in the morning? And maybe not, right? I don't want to read so much negative news. And as a newspaper, however, our job was to report the news. But we didn't want to report so much negative news. So we said, okay, we will make the news better. So it's not like we will stop reporting the negative news, but we will make the news better. How did we propose to do that? We proposed to do that by highlighting issues which were plaguing people in Delhi, in the NCR areas, and actually working with the government to resolve those issues. So if there was a particularly dark stretch which had no street lights and where women faced a lot of hassles in moving around at night, maybe you get off at the bus stop, but just that 200-meter walk to your home is a challenge for you every day, and you have to call somebody to pick you up, even though you are an adult. You need somebody to kind of just cover those 200 meters. So we would highlight these specific stretches, these areas, And we would then work with the government to ensure that street lights were put up in those areas, or wherever there were areas where a lot of, say, pickpockets were hanging around, we would get CCTVs put up in those areas. So it was a lot of collaborative work. We were kind of co-creating this with the government. One particularly proud moment for us was when we were kind of so campaigning against the Gurgaon toll, and how there was so much traffic on it on a daily basis. And I remember someone from the team had made a representation to the government, and ultimately when that it was eased off and people could move freely, traffic did become better there. It was a great sort of victory for us because we had campaigned so hard for it. So I think that is what the intent was, that we are not just going to sit back and report this really sad news, but we are going to become like a very active participant in society, and we will work with the government to resolve these pain points for citizens, so that together all of us can make news better. So that really was the idea behind it, and we worked with our agency Lintas to create all the ads and the communications for the campaign, and it was something that worked really well and connected quite well with the audience. You have to make sure that you are always on top of mind of your intended target audience. And how does that happen? That happens when you are consistently putting content out there. You are consistently creating new news about yourself. So it's not just good enough that you have a good product. I have a fantastic product, and my service is great, and I'm not going to tell anyone about it because it's so fabulous. That's not just enough. You have to make sure that you're continually engaging with your audience, and your audience is really, really time starved. They have a very short attention span. So if you look at statistics, numbers range as low as between 8 seconds, or some people say it's 5 seconds. So whatever story that you are sharing with your customers, your consumers, or your prospects, people who may at some point in the future be your customers, that story has to be really, really sharp. It has to be very short. It has to be very impactful, right? And you have to consistently communicate such stories over a period of time. In marketing terms, there's also something known as riding the buzz, or there are all these topical days. So whenever, for example, somebody wins a medal at the Olympics, or Chennai Super Kings loses yet another match. So how do you as a brand ride the buzz on these conversations, because everybody is talking about it? So how do you become a part of this conversation? That is what keeps the buzz going. Secondly, you said relevance. So relevance is again something that comes from understanding your consumer and their path to purchase journey. What is it that they want to talk more about, or what is it that is a pain point for them, or a point of friction for them? How can you alleviate it? How can you connect with them? So just keep thinking from their point of view, and whatever you create, whatever you promote on various platforms, it has to just resonate with them. All this while, of course, you have to make sure that it should be at the intersection of what connects with them and what you want to talk about also as a brand. It can't just be about what interests them, but it has to be a sweet spot. This is what I want to talk about. This is what they want to hear about, and wherever the circles kind of intersect, that is the sweet spot for you to communicate more about and be relevant to your audience. So it's really important that brands have a proper online reputation management system in place. Typically, these should have, so depending on the category that you are in, the SLAs, the turnaround time, it's the main thing. So whenever people complain about you, what is it that they appreciate the most? A really quick response. In many cases, even today, you don't get a response. So I think the main thing is to have a robust system in place, and a lot of these, technology solutions are available where there's a proper ticketing system. You can create a ticket. You can, assign certain people to respond, and there are proper SLAs in place, proper timelines in place, ranging from 30 minutes to 24 hours to 48 hours. And it's important to have a very elaborate response matrix. So that there are, say, 10 to 15 or 20 at the most very common complaints. Some complaints will be unique, but there's a very broad set of complaints which will be common. So make sure as a brand that you have the right responses to them in place, so that every time you receive a complaint, you don't go scurrying around to collate a response. So have those responses in place. At the same time, you have to ensure that you don't keep copy pasting a very standard response each time. So some amount of customization needs to be done. It should not be very robotic. There should be some personalization. There should be some comprehension of the complaint which should happen, and it should be raised to the right people. So the only thing that works in this space is consistency. You have to be really, really consistent. You have to be very disciplined, and you have to close the complaints that you receive. That's the only way you can protect your reputation. So you have to make sure that the corrective action is taken quickly, the complaint is closed. In many cases, you can request the person who has complained to withdraw the tweet or the post, and many people are gracious enough to do so. Sometimes things go out of hand. When I was at KFC, there was like this one particular complaint of a man saying that there was blood in his chicken and it had some 10 eggs or, some gazillion number of shares. So that is when you have to get into, crisis management mode and figure out how to kind of mitigate the impact of something like this, investigate into what actually happened at the store level, at the business level, set up an inquiry. You do need to know if the business was wrong and at fault. That is something that needs to be, investigated and acknowledged. And you do need to speak to that person. You need to figure out who that person is, what his contact details are. You need to make sure that someone from really high up in the team contacts them, reaches out to them, hears them out. Because these are the people ultimately, they are your customers. They are the ones who are paying for your products and your services. So you have to make sure that they are well taken care of, and in case they've had a poor experience, an apology definitely needs to be tendered. So it's a mix of two things. One, I would say from a technology point of view, you need to have a solution in place so that in a very disciplined manner you can keep managing the complaints. And second, there is the human aspect as well, right? In case things have gone wrong, you have to reach out to the customer and make sure that you close the loop with them, and you ensure that they don't go back with a bad feeling. So I worked with some of my other batchmates. So a few of my batchmates, Nishant, Aprame, and Isha, they had gone to the Hanken University in Finland as part of the exchange program, where they had kind of started working on this project. They needed someone to write it, to kind of, co-author it with them, because they'd done a lot of the groundwork. And because of my journalistic background, they reached out to me. So we had a lot of fun sessions where this professor from Hanken University, she had come down to Delhi. We would listen to all the interviews of people like Kevin Lane Keller. It was almost surreal, right? Because when you're reading all these marketing books, the principles of marketing, and you see Kevin Lane Keller's name there, and then you have all these interviews with these stalwarts from the field of marketing. So we would sort of, all of us sit together with the professor from Hanken University. We would listen to these transcribed interviews, and then there was just so much material. So kind of just putting it together into simple chapters so that whoever read it had some actionable insights, as to what they should do to be good marketers and, good brand management people. So it required a lot of iterations, and there were different drafts that we wrote, and when you are at college, sometimes you're not able to save drafts and things are going wrong, computers are not working, printers are dying on you. So it was also very stressful because we were doing this while we were second year students, and I was also part of the students' bodies. There were a lot of responsibilities. But in retrospect, when I look at it, I think it was a very, very enriching experience. So some of the learnings, I think I've already mentioned that earlier on as well. Just whatever you do as a marketing person, make sure that you look at everything from a customer-centric lens. You should look at the customer's path to purchase journey. So don't just look at the final point where the transaction is happening. Look at the entire path to purchase journey. What are the different things that are going on in the customer's mind when he's making this purchase decision? Who are the different people who could be influencing his decision? What are the different sources of media which could be influencing? Understand how digital marketing works. So I'm not sure if you guys have some sort of a module available in college as part of your coursework. But if that is not the case, or even if that is the case, it would really be good if you guys could pick up some courses. Now, there are so many online learning platforms available these days, right? There's Coursera, there's Udemy. Google itself offers a lot of courses. So just make sure that you pick up some course, and some of these courses are free, right? So you don't really have to invest a lot of money. You just need to invest some time. You will definitely benefit from having something like this on your CV, right? So that's something that's really important. Secondly, try and do like a live project wherever possible. Try and work with some companies. Companies are always looking out for interns or for B-school students who can help them out with projects, especially in the digital space, because this is very new. And companies know that youngsters have an upper hand here, right? You guys are more familiar with technology. You guys are digital natives. You were kind of born to this technology, whereas a lot of us have had to adopt it at a much later stage in our lives. So keep on looking for such projects, network actively with people on LinkedIn. There is no harm or no shame in actively reaching out to people and say that, I'm from such and such college, I'm really interested in digital, and, could you give me a project, or are you guys working on something where I could chip in and help you? Do that kind of stuff. Third, if you're not able to, if you don't get a project for whatever reasons, don't worry. You can also just set up a dummy page on a Facebook, or you can set up an account on Google. Just see how these things work. How can you, what are the different ways in which you can reach out to customers? What are the different tools which are available? Go to all these different blogs, the likes of, say, a techcrunch.com or a mashable.com, or something as simple as a Facebook for business. Or if you want to, venture into more sort of complex solutions or sales solutions, you can look at salesforce.com. So keep reading up. Be aware of what works in the outside world. And like I said, even initially, make sure that there is a very strong business linkage. So it should not just be about, viral content or fun content, or, digital marketing is not just about, oh my God, the TikTok video was so great. It has to show some benefits and some value to the business. So keep that in mind always. See how you can connect things to driving greater value for any business. So whenever you're appearing for any interviews, make sure that you know the business well. And in that particular space, how could something like digital marketing benefit them? That's, when you come up with an idea, it's something that always reflects, it shows how you are how smart you are, how intelligent you are, and how innovative you are. So keep doing those kind of things.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for sharing wonderful marketing and branding lessons from your corporate journey of last 11 years. I think students and our community will benefit a lot from this session, and we would like to host you again in the future, ma'am. Thank you again, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Suyash, and I hope you guys have as much fun at IIFT as I did when I was there. And I hope you guys have a great, brilliant, and a very, very fulfilling career ahead of you. Yeah. All the best to you guys.